In the flickering light of an oil lamp, a lone scholar unfurls a weathered papyrus scroll, his fingers trembling with anticipation. What secrets might this ancient text reveal? This was once a daily scene within the towering walls of humanity's greatest intellectual treasure, the Great Library of Alexandria. Picture yourself walking through its magnificent marble corridors, where the footsteps of history's greatest minds still echo through time. Here, beneath soaring columns and vaulted ceilings, lay hundreds of thousands of scrolls, each one a thread in the tapestry of human knowledge. This wasn't merely a building filled with scrolls and parchments. It was the ancient world's memory vault, its beating intellectual heart. Within these hallowed halls, scholars debated the nature of the cosmos while others calculated the Earth's circumference with astonishing precision. Astronomers charted the movements of celestial bodies, physicians unraveled the mysteries of the human body, and philosophers contemplated the very nature of existence itself. Every corner of this magnificent institution held whispers of discovery. Every chamber resonated with a passionate discourse of minds ablaze with curiosity. The Library of Alexandria stood as a testament to humanity's grandest ambition: to gather all the world's knowledge under one roof. In an age when knowledge traveled at the speed of sailing ships and caravans, Alexandria became the crossroads where the wisdom of Egypt, Greece, Persia, India, and even China converged. Imagine walking these halls as shafts of Mediterranean sunlight pierce through high windows, illuminating dust motes dancing above scrolls containing lost plays of Sophocles, architectural secrets of the pyramids, or mathematical theorems that wouldn't be rediscovered for millennia. This was a place where a simple scroll could be worth the price of a merchant ship, where kings and emperors sent their most trusted agents to acquire copies of precious texts. In an era when each book had to be painstakingly copied by hand, the library's collection of over 500,000 scrolls represented an investment of wealth and human effort that would be staggering even by today's standards. Among these scrolls were the original works of Euclid, whose geometric principles would shape mathematics for the next 2,000 years, and the astronomical observations of Ptolemy, whose models of the cosmos would guide sailors and fascinate scholars until the time of Copernicus. Yet perhaps most remarkable was the library's fundamental mission: not just to collect knowledge, but to create a place where scholars from every corner of the known world could gather, study, and expand the boundaries of human understanding. Within these walls, scholars who spoke dozens of different languages worked side by side, united by their shared pursuit of knowledge. They created the world's first systematic research institute, complete with lecture halls, dining rooms, gardens for contemplation, and even dissection rooms for medical research. As we embark on this journey through time, we'll uncover how this magnificent institution came to be, witness its golden age of discovery and innovation, and unravel the tragic circumstances that led to its eventual destruction. The story of the Great Library of Alexandria is more than just a tale of lost knowledge. It's a testament to humanity's eternal quest to understand our world and our place within it. A quest that continues to this very day, echoing through the digital libraries and virtual archives of our modern age. The Great Library may have vanished into the mists of time, but its legacy endures in every library, university, and research institution that exists today. As we delve deeper into its story, we'll discover that the dream of Alexandria, to gather and preserve the sum of human knowledge, has never died. It lives on in our databases, our digital archives, and in our continuing quest to understand the mysteries of our universe. In the wake of Alexander the Great's death in 323 BCE, his vast empire was divided among his generals, and Egypt fell to Ptolemy I Soter, founding the Ptolemaic dynasty that would rule for nearly 3 centuries. Under his vision, and later his son Ptolemy II Philadelphus, Alexandria would rise to become not just Egypt's capital, but the intellectual and cultural capital of the entire ancient world. This was the dawn of the Hellenistic Age, when Greek culture and knowledge would merge with the ancient wisdom of Egypt and the Near East. The Alexandria of the 3rd century BCE was a marvel of urban planning and architectural innovation. Built on a strategic strip of land between the Mediterranean Sea and Lake Mareotis, the city was designed by Alexander's architect, Dinocrates of Rhodes, following a meticulous grid pattern that would influence city planning for millennia to come. At its heart stood the magnificent royal quarter, gleaming with white marble and gold, home to the Ptolemaic palace complex and the famed Mouseion, which housed the Great Library. While Rome was still stretching its reaches across the Italian peninsula, Alexandria had already become the largest city in the world, with an estimated population of 500,000 inhabitants. Its legendary lighthouse, the Pharos, stood over 300 feet tall, using an intricate system of mirrors to guide ships safely to harbor from distances of up to 30 miles away. This architectural wonder, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, symbolized Alexandria's role as a beacon of civilization, drawing people from across the known world to its shores. The city's prosperity was built on more than just its strategic location. The Ptolemaic rulers established Alexandria as the Mediterranean's primary trade hub, where goods from Africa's interior, Arabia's spice routes, and India's silk roads converged with Mediterranean commerce. The city's great harbor could accommodate hundreds of ships, and its warehouses overflowed with grain, papyrus, textiles, and precious metals. This economic power provided the foundation for Alexandria's cultural and intellectual supremacy. But what truly set Alexandria apart was its unprecedented cosmopolitanism. The city was divided into distinct quarters, yet its streets witnessed a mixing of peoples and cultures unlike anywhere else in the ancient world. In the Greek quarter, philosophers debated in colonnaded gardens. The Jewish quarter hosted one of the largest Jewish communities outside Jerusalem, producing scholars who would bridge Hellenistic and Jewish thought. The Egyptian quarter maintained ancient traditions while embracing new ideas, creating unique syncretistic forms of art, religion, and philosophy. This cultural fusion was actively encouraged by the Ptolemaic rulers, who saw diversity as a source of strength. They maintained Egyptian religious traditions while introducing Greek deities, creating new hybrid cults like that of Serapis. They supported the translation of texts between languages, most famously commissioning the Septuagint, the Greek translation of Hebrew scriptures. This commitment to cultural exchange and preservation would become the founding principle of the Great Library itself. The intellectual atmosphere of Alexandria was electric. In its streets, you might encounter an Indian mystic discussing metaphysics with a Greek philosopher, or see an Egyptian priest explaining ancient astronomical calculations to an eager audience of foreign scholars. The city's markets weren't just places to trade goods. They were forums where ideas, beliefs, and discoveries were shared and debated. This intellectual ferment gave rise to groundbreaking advances in mathematics, astronomy, medicine, engineering, and philosophy. Alexandria's rise marked a crucial turning point in human history, the moment when knowledge itself became an international currency. The city's commitment to learning transformed scholarship from a private pursuit into a state-sponsored enterprise. The Ptolemaic dynasty's investment in knowledge and culture set a new standard for royal patronage that would influence rulers for generations to come. They understood that true power lay not just in military might or economic wealth, but in the ability to attract and nurture the finest minds of the age. As we delve deeper into the story of the Great Library, we must understand that it wasn't just a collection of books. It was the product of this unique historical moment, when the confluence of political will, economic power, and cultural exchange created the perfect conditions for the largest and most ambitious intellectual project the ancient world had ever seen. The Great Library of Alexandria wasn't merely a repository of scrolls. It was part of a vast intellectual complex known as the Mouseion, whose scale and ambition would rival our greatest modern universities. Meaning Temple of the Muses in Greek, this institution was dedicated to the 9 daughters of Zeus who inspired literature, science, and the arts. But to call it merely a temple would be to drastically undersell its grandeur and significance. Picture yourself approaching this magnificent complex through a grand colonnade of polished marble columns, each one reaching towards the brilliant Mediterranean sky. The main building, constructed from gleaming white limestone quarried from the deserts of Egypt, featured a distinctive Greek architectural style with Egyptian influences, a physical manifestation of the cultural fusion that Alexandria represented. The complex sprawled across a section of the royal quarter, covering an area estimated to be larger than several modern football fields combined. Within the Mouseion's walls, a network of interconnected buildings served different scholarly purposes. The main hall, with its soaring ceiling supported by rows of Corinthian columns, housed the primary collection of scrolls. Here, specially designed shelves and pigeonholes, crafted from precious cedar wood to naturally repel insects, held the carefully catalogued papyrus rolls. Each scroll was tagged with a small parchment label, or syllabos, hanging from its roller, the ancient equivalent of our modern library catalog system. The organization of knowledge within these halls was revolutionary for its time. Under the guidance of Callimachus of Cyrene, the library developed the first systematic catalog in history, the Pinox, which ran to 120 volumes itself. This monumental work divided the collection into subject areas and authors, creating a classification system that would influence library science for millennia to come. The scrolls were organized into major subjects: epic poetry, lyric poetry, tragedy, comedy, history, medicine, mathematics, natural science, and miscellaneous works. Beyond the main library hall, the Mouseion complex contained specialized facilities that would seem remarkably modern to our eyes. There were lecture halls where scholars gave public talks on their latest discoveries, and smaller seminar rooms for more intimate academic discussions. Covered walkways, known as peripatoi, were designed for contemplative walks and philosophical debates, following the tradition of Aristotle's Lyceum in Athens. The complex also featured dedicated research facilities that were centuries ahead of their time. There was an astronomical observatory where scientists like Ptolemy conducted their groundbreaking celestial studies. A medical theater allowed for anatomical research, while laboratories enabled alchemical experiments. Gardens housed specimens of exotic plants from across the known world, serving both botanical research and pharmaceutical studies. There was even a dining hall where scholars lived and ate together at state expense, fostering an environment of continuous intellectual exchange. The scroll collection itself was a testament to the Ptolemaic dynasty's obsession with knowledge. Contemporary sources suggest the library held between 400,000 and 700,000 scrolls at its peak. To put this in perspective, a single modern book might have required several scrolls. But even accounting for this, the collection was vast. These weren't just Greek texts. The library contained works translated from Egyptian, Hebrew, Persian, Indian, and many other languages. Teams of translators worked continuously to make these texts accessible to Greek-speaking scholars. The methods used to build this collection were sometimes controversial. Ships docking in Alexandria's harbor were searched for books, which were confiscated and copied. The original manuscripts were often kept for the library, with copies returned to their owners. The Ptolemies sent agents throughout the Mediterranean world to purchase or copy important texts. They even borrowed Athens' official copies of the great tragedians' works, forfeiting a massive deposit to keep the originals while returning copies to the Athenians. Perhaps most remarkable was the library's commitment to multiple versions and interpretations of texts. Scholars would compare different versions of the same work, attempting to establish authoritative editions, essentially inventing the practice of textual criticism. The library contained numerous reading rooms where scholars could study multiple texts simultaneously, comparing and cross-referencing works in a way that wouldn't become common again until the modern era. The Mouseion wasn't just a place of preservation, it was a center of creation. Scholars working there produced new works at an astounding rate, from commentaries on ancient texts to entirely original treatises. The complex included scriptoria where teams of scribes copied texts for both the library's collection and for export to other centers of learning. This production of new knowledge, combined with the preservation of existing wisdom, made the Mouseion the ancient world's equivalent of a major research university, think tank, and national laboratory combined. The Mouseion was the first systematic attempt to gather all human knowledge in one place and, more importantly, to create an environment where that knowledge could be studied, expanded, and transmitted to future generations. It represented something unprecedented in human history: the institutionalization of research and scholarship on a grand scale, supported by state funding and infrastructure. Its legacy lives on in every modern research institution, reminding us that the systematic pursuit of knowledge is one of humanity's noblest endeavors. Within the hallowed halls of the great Library of Alexandria, an extraordinary constellation of brilliant minds gathered, each contributing to humanity's grand tapestry of knowledge. These weren't mere librarians or scholars. They were the guardians of human wisdom, pioneers who pushed the boundaries of understanding across every field of study known to the ancient world. Let us begin with Xenodotus of Ephesus, the library's first official director, appointed around 285 BCE. His revolutionary contribution was creating the first systematic organization of literary works, developing an alphabetical ordering system that would influence library science for millennia. Under his guidance, the library began its transformation from a mere collection of scrolls into an organized repository of human knowledge. But perhaps no name shines brighter in the library's history than that of Euclid, whose work in mathematics would shape human understanding for over 2,000 years. Within these walls, he wrote his masterpiece, The Elements, 13 books that would become the foundation of geometric thinking and mathematical proof. His systematic approach to geometry, starting from simple axioms and building to complex theorems, wasn't just mathematics. It was a new way of thinking about logical proof that would influence fields from philosophy to modern computer science. Imagine walking through the library's corridors and encountering Eratosthenes of Cyrene, the third chief librarian, whose intellectual breadth earned him the nickname Pentathlos, champion of multiple disciplines. His calculation of Earth's circumference was nothing short of miraculous. Using nothing more than shadows, well depths, and geometric calculations, he determined the Earth size with an error of less than 2% from modern measurements. But this was just one of his achievements. He created the first scientific chronology of world events, invented a system for finding prime numbers, the sieve of Eratosthenes, still used today, and drew the first scientific map of the known world using parallels and meridians. The brilliant Archimedes, though not permanently based in Alexandria, spent crucial years studying here. Picture him in the library's study rooms, surrounded by scrolls and calculation tablets, developing his theories of levers, pulleys, and buoyancy. His work on infinitesimals and his method of exhaustion laid the groundwork for what would later become calculus, nearly 2 millennia before Newton and Leibniz. Consider Apollonius of Perga, who revolutionized our understanding of conic sections. His work on ellipses, parabolas, and hyperbolas would later prove crucial to understanding planetary motion and modern physics. In the library's quiet study chambers, he developed mathematical tools that would eventually help astronomers understand the very structure of our solar system. The physician Herophilus conducted groundbreaking anatomical research in the Mausians medical facilities. He was the first to understand that the brain, not the heart, was the seat of intelligence, and he discovered the difference between motor and sensory nerves. His contemporary, ERASED, founded the study of physiology and began to understand the function of the heart as a pump, coming remarkably close to discovering blood circulation 1800 years before William Harvey. In the field of astronomy, Claudius Ptolemy spent decades studying the night sky from the library's observatory. His Almagest became the definitive astronomical text for over 1,000 years. While his geocentric model was eventually disproven, his mathematical methods for predicting planetary positions were so precise that they remained useful into the Renaissance. The tradition of brilliant women scholars at the library reached its apex with Hypatia, a mathematician and astronomer of extraordinary ability. In an age of growing religious tension, she stood as a beacon of rational inquiry and philosophical wisdom. She taught students from across the empire, wrote commentaries on classical mathematical works, and developed innovative designs for astronomical instruments. Her tragic murder in 415 CE symbolically marked the end of the classical age of scholarship in Alexandria. These scholars weren't working in isolation. They were part of a vibrant intellectual community. The library's unique environment encouraged cross-pollination between disciplines. Mathematicians consulted with astronomers, physicians exchanged ideas with philosophers, and poets discussed their work with historians. This interdisciplinary approach to knowledge was unprecedented in the ancient world and wouldn't be seen again until the Renaissance. The guardians of the library understood something profound. That knowledge isn't just about preservation. It's about creation and transmission. They weren't content merely to collect and catalog existing works. They actively created new knowledge through observation, experimentation, and logical reasoning. Their methodical approach to understanding the world laid the groundwork for what we now call the scientific method. Each of these brilliant minds added their own unique thread to the tapestry of human knowledge, creating works that would inspire generations of thinkers to come. While many of their original manuscripts were lost in the library's eventual destruction, their ideas survived through copies and translations, forming the foundation of Western scientific and philosophical thought. Their legacy reminds us that great discoveries often come not just from individual genius, but from creating environments where knowledge can be freely shared and debated. In our modern era of collaborative research and interdisciplinary studies, we are, in many ways, returning to the model that these ancient guardians of knowledge established in Alexandria over 2,000 years ago. The Ptolemaic dynasty's obsession with accumulating knowledge was unprecedented in human history. Their methods for building the library's collection were as ambitious as they were controversial, establishing what might be considered the ancient world's first systematic program of knowledge acquisition and preservation. Ptolemy I Soter, following Alexander's dream of universal knowledge, established a collection policy that would make modern librarians gasp. Every ship entering Alexandria's bustling harbor was subject to a remarkable procedure known as the ship's library. Royal officials would board vessels and conduct thorough searches, not for contraband or taxable goods, but for books and scrolls. This practice was codified into law, creating what might be history's first mandatory legal deposit system. The process was methodical. When a ship was found carrying written works, they were immediately confiscated and taken to the library. There, an army of highly trained scribes would spring into action. Working in well-lit scriptorium chambers, they would carefully copy each text onto fresh papyrus scrolls. The quality of these copies was legendary. Alexandria's scribes were renowned for their accuracy and beautiful handwriting. What happened next depended on the value and rarity of the original work. Sometimes, the original would be returned to its owner, along with fair compensation. Often, however, the library would keep the original and return only the copy, considering the compensation payment enough to justify this literary appropriation. This aggressive acquisition policy was supported by an equally ambitious translation program. The Ptolemies employed hundreds of translators working in dozens of languages. These weren't just casual interpreters. They were highly educated scholars who could understand complex technical, philosophical, and literary works. The translation chamber of the library would have been a babel of ancient languages. Egyptian hieroglyphs being rendered into Greek, Babylonian cuneiform tablets being deciphered, Hebrew scrolls being carefully translated, and Persian texts being interpreted. Perhaps the most famous translation project was the creation of the Septuagint, the Greek translation of the Hebrew Bible. According to legend, 72 scholars were brought from Jerusalem and housed on the island of Pharos, where they completed the translation in 72 days. While the legendary details may be embellished, the Septuagint's creation represents one of the ancient world's most significant translation projects, one that would have enormous influence on the spread of Jewish and, later, Christian thought throughout the Greek-speaking world. The Ptolemies' methods of acquisition went far beyond passive collection. They sent agents throughout the known world with nearly unlimited funds to purchase books and manuscripts. These literary hunters traveled to Athens, Rhodes, and as far as India, seeking rare and important texts. They frequented book markets, visited temples known for their libraries, and negotiated with private collectors. The prices they paid were often astronomical. There are records of them paying sums equivalent to hundreds of thousands of modern dollars for particularly rare or important works. One of the most aggressive collection strategies involved the borrowing of official state copies of important works. The most famous example was when Ptolemy III borrowed Athens' official copies of the tragedies of Aeschylus, Sophocles, and Euripides. He posted an enormous deposit of 15 talents of silver, approximately $1 million in modern terms, to guarantee their return. However, choosing to forfeit the deposit, he kept the originals and sent back beautifully crafted copies to Athens. This incident demonstrates both the library's wealth and its determination to possess original texts rather than copies when possible. The library also actively commissioned new works. Scholars were given generous stipends and asked to produce original research, compilations, and commentaries. This wasn't just collection. It was active knowledge creation. The library became known as a place where new works were born alongside the preservation of old ones. Scholars would compile encyclopedias, create new maps, write histories, and compose scientific treatises, all under the patronage of the Ptolemies. The scribal operation itself was a marvel of ancient organization. Different types of scribes specialized in different kinds of works. Some focused on mathematical texts, where precision in copying diagrams and equations was crucial. Others specialized in literary works, where understanding meter and poetic forms was essential. Still others were experts in technical drawings, able to accurately reproduce architectural plans or mechanical diagrams. Quality control was rigorous. Completed copies would be checked multiple times by different scholars before being accepted into the collection. Errors in copying could result in serious consequences for the scribes responsible. This attention to accuracy helped establish Alexandria as the source for authoritative versions of many ancient texts. The library also developed sophisticated conservation methods. Scrolls were treated with cedar oil to prevent decay and protect against insects. Special storage cases and climate-controlled rooms, as much as ancient technology allowed, were used to preserve delicate manuscripts. The library's conservators developed techniques for handling and repairing damaged scrolls that would influence manuscript preservation for centuries to come. This extraordinary effort to gather knowledge had a profound impact on ancient intellectual life. Alexandria became known as the place where one could find any book worth reading. Scholars would travel thousands of miles just to consult rare texts in the library's collection. The library's reputation was such that owning an Alexandrian copy of a text gave it special authority. These were considered the most accurate versions available in the ancient world. The Ptolemies' obsession with collecting knowledge created something unprecedented, a true universal library that attempted to gather all human knowledge in one place. While their methods might seem aggressive by modern standards, their achievement was remarkable. They created not just a library, but a new model for how human knowledge could be collected, preserved, and transmitted to future generations. The destruction of the Great Library of Alexandria wasn't a single catastrophic event, but rather a slow, tragic decline spanning centuries. A death by 1,000 cuts that would gradually erase humanity's greatest repository of ancient knowledge. This decline mirrors the larger story of classical civilization's fade into the medieval period, marked by political instability, religious conflicts, and changing intellectual priorities. The first major blow came in 48 BCE, during Julius Caesar's Alexandrian War. The dramatic events unfolded when Caesar, pursuing his rival Pompey, found himself trapped in Alexandria's royal quarter by hostile forces. He ordered ships in the harbor to be set aflame to prevent their capture by enemy forces. But the fire, driven by strong Mediterranean winds, spread beyond the harbor and into the city. Contemporary accounts describe how the flames reached the library's storage areas, destroying an estimated 40,000 scrolls, though this was likely a subsidiary storage facility rather than the main library building. The loss was significant enough that Mark Antony, years later, attempted to compensate Cleopatra by sending her 200,000 scrolls from the Library of Pergamum. This massive donation, while demonstrating the continuing importance of Alexandria's intellectual heritage, also marked a shifting of power dynamics. Rome was now positioning itself as the patron of Alexandrian learning, rather than its student. A change that would have profound implications for the library's future. The next phase of decline came with rising tensions between Alexandria's various communities in the Roman period. The city had long been a melting pot of cultures, but under Roman rule, these differences increasingly led to violent confrontations. The Jewish revolt of 115 to 117 CE resulted in significant damage to parts of the city, including some of the library's facilities. The Roman Emperor Trajan's subsequent repression of the revolt led to further destruction of Alexandria's cultural institutions. The rise of Christianity brought new challenges. As the new faith gained political power, attitudes toward classical learning began to shift. The murder of Hypatia in 415 CE by a Christian mob marked a symbolic turning point. Hypatia, the last known scholar associated with the library, represented the classical tradition of secular learning. Her death signaled a changing intellectual climate where certain forms of classical knowledge were increasingly viewed with suspicion. During the 4th century CE, Emperor Theodosius I's decrees against pagan institutions led to the destruction of Alexandria's Serapeum, a daughter library and temple complex that had housed some of the original library's overflow collection. This event, while not destroying the main library, which had likely already declined significantly, represented the formal end of Alexandria's position as the center of classical learning. The library's final decline was likely hastened by more mundane factors as well. The cost of maintaining such a vast collection of papyrus scrolls was enormous. Each scroll needed regular maintenance, unrolling, oiling, recopying when worn. As Alexandria's political and economic importance waned under Roman and later Byzantine rule, the resources needed for this maintenance became scarcer. Scrolls would have deteriorated from simple neglect, their contents lost to humidity, insects, and time. Economic factors also played a crucial role. The production and supply of papyrus, once an Egyptian monopoly, became increasingly unreliable as trade routes shifted and political instabilities grew. The transition from papyrus scrolls to parchment codices in late antiquity meant that many texts weren't recopied in the new format, leading to their eventual loss. The Arab conquest of Egypt in 642 CE is sometimes cited as the final destruction of the library, but historical evidence suggests that by this time, the great institution had already largely ceased to exist in any meaningful form. The famous story of Caliph Omar ordering the books to be used as fuel for Alexandria's bathhouses is likely apocryphal, a later invention reflecting medieval Islamic attitudes toward classical learning. Perhaps the most tragic aspect of the library's decline was its gradual nature. Had the destruction been sudden and complete, perhaps more effort would have been made to preserve its contents through copies elsewhere. Instead, the slow erosion of this institution meant that works disappeared one by one, often without anyone realizing their significance or making efforts to preserve them. The loss was immense. Works of the great tragic poets now known only by title or fragments, scientific and mathematical treatises that might have accelerated human progress, historical accounts that could have illuminated dark corners of ancient history, philosophical works that might have transformed our understanding of ancient thought. Each lost scroll represented not just the loss of a physical object, but the severing of a link to ancient wisdom and knowledge. The decline of the Great Library serves as a powerful reminder of the fragility of human knowledge and the importance of its preservation. In an age where we face new challenges to the preservation of information, digital decay, format obsolescence, information overload, the story of Alexandria's library remains painfully relevant. It reminds us that the preservation of knowledge requires not just physical infrastructure, but also continued cultural commitment and institutional support. The end of the Library of Alexandria wasn't just the destruction of a building or a collection of books. It was the end of an idea, that human knowledge could be gathered, preserved, and studied in one great institution. This idea would not emerge again until the modern era, with our digital libraries and global information networks. In many ways, we are still trying to rebuild what was lost in Alexandria's gradual decline. The Library of Alexandria's destruction represents one of humanity's greatest cultural catastrophes. A loss so profound that scholars still debate its full impact today. Within those ancient walls lay countless scrolls containing knowledge accumulated over centuries. Works that would be forever lost to time and flame. Among the most tragic losses were the complete works of the great Greek dramatists. While we cherish what remains of Sophocles, Euripides, and Aeschylus, we possess only a fraction of their total output. Sophocles alone wrote over 120 plays, yet only 7 survived complete. Imagine the deep insights into human nature, the profound dialogues, the masterful character studies that vanished forever. These lost plays might have revolutionized our understanding of ancient Greek society and continued to influence modern theater in ways we can only imagine. The library housed irreplaceable mathematical and engineering treatises from the ancient world's greatest minds. Advanced geometric theories, architectural innovations, and mechanical designs that could have accelerated technological progress by centuries were reduced to ash. We know that brilliant minds like Archimedes developed sophisticated mathematical concepts and ingenious machines, but many of their most advanced works were lost. Some historians speculate that the library may have contained early designs for steam engines, complex calculators, and other mechanical wonders that wouldn't be reinvented for over 1,000 years. Perhaps most haunting are the lost historical records of ancient civilizations. Detailed accounts of the rise and fall of empires, diplomatic correspondences, economic records, and cultural observations, all vanished. The library held extensive documentation of the Persian Empire, the early Egyptian dynasties, and countless other civilizations whose stories we now know only through fragments and secondary sources. These records might have filled crucial gaps in our understanding of human civilization's development and revealed forgotten innovations in governance, agriculture, and social organization. The loss extended beyond factual knowledge. The library contained countless works of poetry, philosophy, and literature that represented the creative and intellectual pinnacle of ancient civilization. Imagine lost epics that rivaled Homer's works, philosophical treatises that could have transformed our understanding of consciousness and existence, and poetry that captured the essence of ancient life in vivid detail. The destruction of the Library of Alexandria serves as a sobering reminder of knowledge's fragility. Each scroll that burned represented decades or even centuries of human observation, creativity, and wisdom. The fire that consumed these works didn't just destroy parchment and ink. It erased portions of humanity's collective memory, forcing future generations to rediscover and reinvent what was once known. This catastrophic loss teaches us the vital importance of preserving knowledge. In our digital age, we have unprecedented abilities to preserve and share information, yet we must remain vigilant. The Library of Alexandria reminds us that civilization's greatest achievements must be carefully protected and transmitted to future generations, lest they too vanish into the mists of time. The empty spaces in our historical record left by Alexandria's destruction continue to haunt scholars. Each fragmentary reference to a lost work, each quoted passage from a vanished text, reminds us of the vast repository of human knowledge and creativity that went up in flames. In these gaps, we see not just what was lost, but what might have been. How different our world might be had this beacon of learning survived to illuminate the path of human progress. Would you like me to expand on any particular aspect of this historical loss? Perhaps delve deeper into the specific works we know were lost, or explore how the library's destruction affected the development of various fields of knowledge. The dream of Alexandria lives on in our modern digital world, where vast servers scattered across continents house humanity's collective knowledge. Every web page, every digital book, every archived document represents a small tribute to that ancient ambition of gathering all human wisdom in one place. Yet, in our race to digitize and preserve, we must heed the sobering lessons that Alexandria's fate teaches us. Our digital archives may seem invulnerable, protected by redundancies and backed up across multiple locations, but they face their own unique threats. While fire and sword may no longer pose the same danger, we confront new challenges. Bit rot, format obsolescence, cyber attacks, and the potential collapse of our technological infrastructure. The permanence we associate with digital storage is, in many ways, an illusion as fragile as the papyrus scrolls of antiquity. The true lesson of Alexandria extends beyond mere storage methods. It speaks to our fundamental relationship with knowledge itself. Each generation serves as a temporary custodian of humanity's intellectual heritage. We inherit not just information, but a sacred responsibility to preserve and transmit this wisdom to those who will follow. This preservation requires active engagement, not just storing knowledge, but understanding it, teaching it, and ensuring it remains accessible and relevant. The parallels between Alexandria's time and ours are striking. Just as scholars once journeyed to Egypt's great port city to copy texts and share knowledge, today's researchers collaborate across digital networks, sharing data and insights at unprecedented speeds. But like Alexandria's librarians, we must remain vigilant against the forces that threaten this vast repository of human understanding. As we build our modern digital libraries, we must ask ourselves hard questions. How can we ensure our digital knowledge survives not just years, but centuries? What formats will remain readable in 1,000 years? How do we protect against both technological obsolescence and human-made disasters? The answers to these questions will determine whether future generations will celebrate our foresight or lament our short-sightedness. Looking toward the future, imagine if we could peek into a history book written a millennium from now. Will it praise our era as the time when humanity finally created an indestructible archive of knowledge? Or will it describe another Alexandria-like catastrophe, where vast swaths of human knowledge vanished into the digital void? The choice, and the responsibility, rests with us. Now, dear viewers, as we conclude this journey through time, from the ancient halls of Alexandria to the digital archives of today, I invite you to become part of this ongoing story. What lost knowledge from the Library of Alexandria intrigues you most? Perhaps it's the lost plays of the great dramatists, the engineering secrets of ancient civilizations, or the forgotten philosophies that might have changed the course of human thought. Join our community at Legacy of Empires as we continue to explore these fascinating mysteries of the ancient world. Every like, subscription, and comment helps us build a modern community of knowledge seekers, keeping alive the spirit of intellectual curiosity that made Alexandria great. Don't forget to activate your notifications to stay updated on our latest historical investigations and discoveries. Together, we can ensure that the dream of Alexandria, the preservation and sharing of human knowledge, lives on in our digital age. For in the end, we are not just consumers of history, but its guardians, charged with passing the torch of human wisdom to future generations. What lost works from Alexandria's vast collection would you most wish to recover? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and let's keep this fascinating discussion alive.